going to get all the Panthers shots up here in the early going, as this is more local and before Amin comes in here, because it's a fascinating time in the NBA. Paul George is headed to the Sixers, and the Miami Heat haven't done much, so we'll speak to that when Amin joins us. But there is a move that appears to be happening in the NHL, and I heard a lot of F the Lightning chants at the parade out there yesterday.
Well, that was about the thunderstorms and lightning, not the Tampa Bay Lightning.
They leaned in, and they took their pot shots. Chucky took another pot shot at Edmonton. And
I didn't even realize the symbolism of the Lightning almost ruining another Panthers Stanley Cup.
But not phased. The symbolism here, Jess, is that, once again, the Panthers are unfazed by the Lightning, not the other way around. You're talking about ancient history at this point.
But, the Lightning ending the Panthers parade.
It would have been terrible.
Cool. It would have been
cool. And you couldn't let that one happen. But while that parade was going on, the Tampa Bay Lightning made a very interesting move. They clear about $11.5 million in space. The Stugotz trade to Utah caught a lot of people off guard. Stugotz gave Tampa a big emotional lift coming back from a gruesome compound leg fracture. Really good player when I don't know if he's ever going to reach those levels again, but might have been a difference maker had he been healthy for that entire series against the Florida Panthers. Who knows? Him
coming in during the series got them that one game.
Yeah. Oh, the pop that he got, I was there for that. It's crazy, and he's a good player. But he gets moved, and you assume, okay, if they're clearing all this space, they were clearly far apart on Stamkos. Maybe this is about getting Stamkos his money. Not the case. Steven Stamkos appears to be headed to one of 4 franchises in Nashville right now, getting a lot of the hot buzz. I think betting favorite for him to go to Nashville. But the room that they cleared was for Jake Gensel, which is a surprising move for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Everyone assumed that if Gensel does test the market, it won't be there because they don't have the room for him. The wide expectation was that he was going to re-sign with Carolina. Doesn't end up happening. Apparently, they felt like they had a deal, pretty much the framework in place, but then the open market changed things. So Gensel goes to Tampa Bay, and this is a big-time acquisition for Tampa Bay. But Roy, here's my pro-Panthers spin on it. Gensel, and I know the analytics like him, and he does some things off the puck that you don't necessarily see. I see, not talked about enough, a smaller winger that you could push to the boards and will go missing during key stretches. Didn't they just have that with Kucherov? A lot of their best guys, and now you take Stamkos out of the picture, a lot of their best guys are smaller. And that leans into some of the advantages. You saw how the Panthers drafted over at the Sphere. Nobody under 6 feet. The Panthers' identity is we're going to have big guys that can skate that are also skilled. They're going small winger, Jake Gensel, maybe someone you could say maybe some of those stats are empty. You got to play with some talent over there in Pittsburgh. And when Carolina needed him most, he didn't really show up. What's your immediate reaction to Jake Gensel to Tampa?
7 years, $9 million. Those are the numbers that came in.
When you hold that up against the Sam Reinhart reported details, where Sam Reinhart is a two-way player, a 50-goal scorer, scored a game-winning goal in Game 7, where Gensel might have been a little frustrating at times during that Rangers series in particular.
I mean, who else do they have? Really?
Look, there's moves to be made for Tampa Bay with that space. I think they're just going talent onslaught and try to meet the Florida Panthers' depth a little bit. But you lose Stugotz and you lose Stamkos. You replace them with a really different type of player. And Jake Gensel kind of feels like a panic move, Roy.
Yeah, and they absolutely lowballed Steven Stamkos as well. I mean, that was insulting what they did to him. I mean, 2 Stanley Cups for the Lightning for him. That's insulting, and I'm offended on his behalf despite being a Panthers fan. You don't do that to him.
Tony, do you match Roy's passion on this topic when
Absolutely.
it comes to Steven Stamkos?
Stamkos is just one of the legends of the Tampa Bay area, and you're going to give him that set. You know, you look at my man's deal, 7 years, $9 million, which is a crime, by the way. How does that math even work out?
When you start talking out of your ass, you do the Trump hands.
Of course, I have to.
You also sound like Stugotz
the
doing the good senior guard play on March Madness.
Well, let's talk about something that is a little bit more in your wheelhouse. I saw a highlight reel knockout. Now, I did not see this UFC pay-per-view, although I was excited about the main event. I was just in Universal Studios at Pat O'Brien's. I could not do it. I could not watch the UFC event. What did I miss
Okay, so you missed, again, this was originally supposed to be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, a massive card in its own right, because anytime that McGregor is on a card, the entire world watches, right? He gets taken out. The co-main event also gets removed between Jamal Hill, former champion, friend of the show, and Carlos Ulberg. They're now out. Enter a new main event between Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira, who is the hottest star right now in the UFC. There's nobody like him. Highlight reel knockouts, what you saw at 300, where he knocked out Jamal Hill. Intimidating dude, 6'4", 230 pounds, just an absolute monster, right? So we had that main event. The co-main event falls apart 4 hours before the fight. So as everybody's en route to the fight, Brian Ortega, who was supposed to be part of the co-main event, he gets sick, 104-degree fever, he gets out. Dan Ige, another fighter, with 4 hours notice, comes in, makes weight against all odds, goes in and has an absolute banger of a fight, probably the second best fight of the night between him and Diego Lopez, another rising star of the promotion. So all in all, it was a lackluster card, but with those two fights, it really stepped up. And then what you saw between Yuri Prochazka, who's an insane person in his own right, when he found out that he was going to have the chance to avenge his light heavyweight title, he was in the Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to sit in a cabin for 3 days, no lights, no water,
3 days,
no food.
No sustenance.
Nothing.
Was the quote I read.
My boy was locked in, right? The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
It was fire because the champ, he said he saw a tail in Prochazka's game during the pregame video that he had put out on Instagram. He said, "Oh, he's dropping his hands every time he blocks a kick."
Checks the kick, yep.
And then 40 minutes later, across the head, knocked out. You did me?
So
Poetin.
What's crazy, at the end of the first round, he hit him with a left hand, falling back like a fadeaway jumper, falling back left hand that knocked him out at the buzzer. He fell on his back, looked around, was like, oh my God, got up wobbly. They sat him on the corner. First second of the second round, we see something like this. I don't know if we have B-roll or if it's audio. I'll talk through it if it's B-roll. Let's see. No, this has audio. Okay, so high head kick, like Juju said. He kind of gave him a feint like he was going to go low on a leg kick, which he had done previously in the first round. Goes high and absolutely knocks him out. They had to hold up Yuri Prochazka. Herb Dean was like holding him up. Yuri was walking around like, whoa. He didn't have his sea legs with him. But what we're looking at right now is Alex Pereira is fast-tracking himself to a UFC Hall of Fame career without a doubt. He's
fighting so much lately.
Not only is he super active as a champion, middleweight, knocking out Izzy Adesanya, commanding middleweight respect everywhere. Then he moves up a weight class and then destroys everybody in that weight class. We have another angle of the knockout that we could play here. This was, boom. Like, it is over.
Jeez.
And
he broke his toe on that kick, too.
He did break his toe. But what we're looking at is one of the greatest runs. He's only had about 10 or 11 fights in the UFC, and he has more title fights than non-title fights in his UFC career. Again, he's not the global superstar of a McGregor or whatever. He doesn't speak the language, but he's incredible, and he's fast-tracking to a Hall of Fame career like sprinting.
Because of the kickboxing, there's a lot of comparisons. I think the thing that he gets compared to John Jones the most is his ability to move in weight class. John Jones, very similar. A lot of people were fantasy booking a weight class that they could both fight each other in. I don't know.
There's no way.
There's no shot, right?
There's no way. Like, when you talk about the heavyweight division, you talk about a guy like Tom Aspinall who walks around at 260 pounds. When you talk about John Jones, greatest mixed martial artist of all time, and what he did to Cyril Gane.
Yeah. What does he walk around at? What's like 250?
Yeah. Right now, probably 250, 260, somewhere in that range. But
I mean, when he first burst onto the scene, they could fight in the same weight class.
He was a light heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
He was the youngest light heavyweight title winner, UFC title winner of all time.
He's the greatest fighter of all time.
Period. But when you look at what Alex has in his game and the success that the other guys have as far as getting people to the ground and choking them out very quickly, Tom Aspinall, like guys in the heavyweight division would take care of him very quickly because of that weight discrepancy. But I think...
And you can't really count on John Jones's ability to be available, really.
He was going to be available, then tore the pec, and then now it's like up in the air. I think that the fight to make in the heavyweight division is Aspinall versus John Jones when they do get that. But I think the next move would be, and we're going to have it in kind of short order, UFC 305, Perth, Australia. We're going to have Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya for the middleweight belt. If Izzy can beat Dricus, okay, get back the middleweight belt, we have a super fight champion versus champion for everything, for all the marbles. for bad blood, redemption, finality, closure. Izzy versus Alex one last time at 205 for the light heavyweight belt. Nobody can beat Alex right now. He's on a hot streak. Izzy kind of on a downturn after losing to Sean Strickland in an embarrassing fashion. If he can beat DDP and you can set up a light heavyweight fight between Alex and Izzy for everything, I think it would be one of the biggest fights we could make.
Tony, getting back to that knockout, how do you feel about Herb Dean's stoppage? Did he go in too late?
He went way too late. I think for him, he was like, I'm not going to have anybody tell me that I stopped this thing too early.
Do you think a part of it was like, damn, what a knockout. Like, it kind of froze him a little bit.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I
The
think,
knockout was so great.
like, after this 8th punch on the floor, like, Herb could have stepped in during number 4. But again, there has been some talk about Herb being a little slow.
Yeah.
He had one time where it was like, bruh, you stopped it early. And then since then, he been stopping them things late as hell, boy. He would let you die on the ring first and then be, all right, it's over.
I don't know if anybody caught the draft out of the sphere. Really cool visuals. Probably just scratched the surface on what they could do. And Dana took the opportunity to talk about what the NHL had done. By the way, the moment of the NHL draft was something that they kept pretty well guarded as a secret. And it was Celine Dion showing up to announce the 5th pick of the Montreal Canadiens. That was a really cool moment. And there were 2 moments from the weekend that I think kind of won the weekend, and that was certainly one of them, Roy.
I would say about the NHL draft is not a single team congratulated the Florida Panthers on their Stanley Cup victory, and that's I've never seen that.
So again,
Haters.
I'm coming at this from a pretty peaceful place. I'd worked through myself after the Greg Cody stuff. I thought going into that Game 7 that we were going to lose because vibes were toxic. They end up winning. So I realized Tony has a Collabo shirt. Can I tell you about what Tony tried to do to me? The shirt that Tony is holding right now. In your hand. Go ahead. Give yourself some shine. Sponsored by the Haters.
Left, actually. Collab with Daly and my
Yeah, you did a collabo with Daly. We love Jonathan. We love Daly. Great guys. I got a text message from Tony saying, hey, limited supply. Would like to get you a shirt. $45.
Same.
This is the plug that I put him in touch with. It's my plug. And he's asking me for $45.
Just in case you wanted to buy others for somebody else, I got you on one. You know that. And I texted you as much.
You said you got me on one after I told you, quote, fuck off.
The Stugotz is strong.
Big NBA transaction, Jeremy. What can you tell us about it?
Isaiah Hartenstein has signed with the Oklahoma City Thunder on a 3-year, $87 million contract.
There it is, Knicks fans. Man, he likes it here. No, he's friends with the guys here. No, some things are more important than money.
That shirt just went away, Sam Morrill. That shirt does not matter no more. Salute, my bad, Jess.
How much did the second apron play into this, Amin?
Oh, enough.
The second apron.
Tell us about the aprons.
There's only one apron that matters. The one that he's wiping his money-hungry hands on. Like, oh, yeah, I got all this dirt from all these millions I've been counting. Look, ladies and gentlemen.
Barbecue?
Yeah, it's saucy. It's saucy millions.
It's Oklahoma.
The most the Knicks could offer, apron or not, 4 years, $72 million. The most. Nick Claxton got $100 million. At that point, I said, kiss it goodbye.
Yeah.
There's no way he looks across the river, sees a guy that he says, well, I'm better than him, I play on a better team, and he's going to get 25 a year, and I'm going to take 16. No chance in hell. And I had to hear all this stuff about, but he likes the guys, and he enjoys playing with them, and you can't put a price on friendship. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Who was that right there? Who you just imitated?
Taylor.
That's Taylor.
Oh, nice.
Taylor. Sorry, you are the Knick fan of our lives, so that's how we're gonna do it. No, man, that's like this. Every year we go through this. Every year in the NBA, there's a free agent on a team, and it's like, hey, the most they can offer him is this, but his market value is gonna be somewhere around here. And there are these people who delude themselves into thinking, no,
he likes us.
They you can't put a price on. Yes, you can. His whole life is about maximizing how much money he can make in a very small window of time.
Well, occasionally, someone like maybe Sam Reinhart in another sport will take the friendly team deal.
Gustav Forsling did do that, and I think you take the team-friendly deals when you're close to winning a championship, and maybe, just maybe, inside of league circles, they don't think the Knicks are as close to a title as Knicks fans feel.
I just want to point out, I like how we're on this plane, and the plane is, there's all sorts of alarms, and we're about to crash, and I grabbed the steering wheel and said, come on, I'll take you to salvation. And we fly towards NBA free agency, and just like, no, hockey again.
Oh, come on, man.
We're having
That's
fun
not
back
fair.
here.
I do want to address
our last day.
It's not fair, Roy. It's been 8 years
our
of
last
hockey in the last
day.
2 weeks.
Jesus Christ.
Catching
it's free
up.
agency time,
There-
man. Come on.
I know for the NBA.
But for
New
the
York,
NHL.
New York isn't exactly a tax-free state. There's been this huge notion from a lot of NHL fans. Tampa got hit with this a lot when they were winning. Is that, well, you got to do something about these state tax teams. They have an unfair advantage.
That's what Maple Leaf fans are saying.
They have an unfair advantage, and I will say it's a different story altogether for the Canadian teams than it is for those in the United States. But someone should do something about this.
No.
To which I say they do. All right, Sam Reinhart's home that he's going to fetch for $8 million down here in South Florida would look a hell of a lot different than if it were in Columbus, Ohio.
Boom.
Like there's a whole cost of living aspect here, And I
Including it being underwater.
yeah, there's give me the cost of living in Columbus, Ohio. If you want to complain about the state tax here, let me buy a house for the value that I would get it at Columbus, Ohio, if you have an issue with the state tax thing. Cost of living does factor into these things. And also, it's not like he's not going to be getting state taxes when they play in the New York area.
That's the other part. Right?
It's just for like 50% of their games.
It's an inherent incompetence about how any of this works. It's just like, oh, but they got no state income taxes. Okay, first of all, they still got federal taxes, which is the majority of your tax you're paying. But plus, any road game you play, most of these states now have enacted the jock tax.
Yeah.
Which is anytime these performers, singers, comedians, and athletes come to your state, they're getting taxed there. And so 41 road games, guess what happens on the salary earned in those games?
That being said, if there's an NHL lifer that just gets moved to one of the two Florida teams and they have a home stretch for about 10 days, they look at their check and they're like, did someone make a mistake? Because so much money usually gets taken out of those things.
It's probably, you know what's interesting? I wonder what happens if, like, I never play a road game. Right? Like if some old long in the
Or
tooth guy.
Kyrie, where he never had to play a home game in Brooklyn, but he could play
Right, like this
on the road trips.
I'd love to talk to an accountant. If you're an accountant, call us on the show.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the Oklahoma City aspect to this move because I
want to
really.
talk about the aprons. Will someone please just tell me about the aprons? I mean,
What is the tax apron?
I don't feel comfortable about Jess asking about aprons.
I think she wants to put people in that position.
Oh.
the only apron that she should be talking about is the one she wears when she makes me a sandwich.
She wears an apron to make a sandwich?
I like what the Thunder are doing.
Good sandwiches.
Adding Caruso especially. This is a team that needed some of those veterans to help do some of those dirtier things that can help you win a title. Those are good glue guys. Those are good role players. I really like Oklahoma City after these moves.
You know what they did? They're baking the cake at 400 degrees. I love it. I use this analogy every year, right? Particularly with the young teams, right? The instructions say bake the cake 400 degrees for 20 minutes. A lot of times organizations, after a little bit of success, are like, crank it to 800 and it'll be done in 10. And that's how they mess everything up. And the Thunder are like, no, let it bake.
Are the Knicks cranking it up to 800?
Man, 6 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges is cranking it up.
I kind of feel that way too.
It was it was a combination of two different analogies. One is they cranked it up to 800 degrees. Two is they're doing the dice thing too much. They're going into that. Oh, Villanova, that works. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, give me Villanova.
It works with these role player guys. What if we have a team all of role players from Villanova?
Villanova, Amari Spellman, Villanova. Wait, what about Sadiq Bey?
Arcadiacino.
Yeah.
Sadiq Bey somewhere like he's like, I don't know.
Boys,
I
what
got
up?
bars.
Where we at?
Do I have bars? I don't know, man. Man, what's the Wi-Fi again? Oh, they haven't hit me up yet.
5G?
Well, with the Knicks now, I mean, so it's 3 years, $87 million for Hartenstein to go to Oklahoma City. With the Knicks, you now look at their trade, and by having to lose Hartenstein, it's sort of like they included him in that deal. So you look at Isaiah Hartenstein, Bojan Bogdanovic, 5 first-round picks and a second-round pick for Mikal Bridges, I think that the Knicks got better in terms of acquiring Bridges. I praised the trade last week. But did they get significantly better with this move?
It's a little intellectually.
You also had to bring back OG.
It's a little intellectually disingenuous because it doesn't matter whether they do the deal or not. Early bird rights for Hartenstein, they can only offer him a deal.
So it wasn't going to happen regardless.
It was like the only way it was going to happen was if the kindness of his dumb old heart.
Perfect.
Like I would, but I love it here, and that's what they were banking their whole thing in. Or this would be a more radical approach if they had renounced a bunch of stuff and gone under the cap and then used cap space to sign him.
I guess the question still
He could have also
applies
done
on-
like a really short-term year, right?
Sure.
But no NBA agent would say that's a good idea.
But even if he did a 1-year deal to get to full bird rights next year, it would be a 1-year deal for $16 million versus 3 years, 87, with a team that looks like they're going to be running the sport
Yeah, they're gonna
for
be
the
in that-
next 5 years.
So
They're gonna be in
maybe
that
intellectually
conversation,
dishonest to make it all sort of like one move.
Yeah.
But the question, I guess, still remains of how much better did the Knicks get considering what
They
the
lost-
transactions are?
They lost Hartenstein and now Mitchell Robinson, who was their original starter, but has had an injury history throughout his career. That's now you're hanging all your hopes on that. So you've got to figure out what you're going to do to get a 5. Now, the part where the deal does come into play is how much they can offer Precious Achiuwa because of the hard cap enacted by the apron if they're taking in more money than they give out. So they've got to rework that deal, which means they might lose Deuce McBride. These are all the kind of things that in the margins people don't want to hear about. They're kind of boring, but like these are the counting things that will end up being, well, why do we have to let him go? Because this, and this.
Let's bring in Jake Fisher from Yahoo Sports, who does a great job covering the NBA, who you know a little bit to talk about some of these recent moves. And our show can finally chew on this Paul George thing that happened overnight. Paul George to the Sixers. I already saw the who can stop these guys graphic, and I was looking at the knees in particular. I was maybe fixating, maybe circle the knees.
The circle of the Olympics 2024, Joel Embiid. What are you doing?
So Paul George now joins Maxey, who I think got a max deal. Is that a part of the?
He got a maxi deal.
He got a maxi
4
deal.
for 204.
Look, I mean, Philadelphia added to a team that, again, health is always going to be the question there. But I think it's a good fit for Paul George. I'm curious to know Jake's thoughts here. So let's start right there, Jake, and welcome aboard the show. Let's start with the headliner moves so far of this offseason. Paul George to Philadelphia. Your immediate thoughts?
This was kind of the Sixers' plan for 2024 free agency, starting as early as 2023 free agency when James Harden opted in and requested a trade. The Sixers made this plan. This is Daryl Morey's like master pipe dream of trying to trade him and only taking back 1-year contracts to then get into the open market this summer and be the only winning team with max cap space. And they did it. Like Daryl Morey did it again. As much as people want to talk, crap on him and make fun of his calculators and his spreadsheets, like this was the vision and this was their guy all along, and they got him. It's like kind of been like a 300-day approach for this guy.
Was this vengeance?
A little bit. I mean, look, the other aspect of this, James Harden gets traded to the Clippers. The Sixers get back Clippers picks, and then they made the Clippers monumentally worse by bringing back Paul George. It's crazy.
So you touched on some of the reasons why this may be, but the Clippers put out like a weird statement.
Yes, they
I
did.
guess acknowledging Paul George's time there, and it really just felt like that's what it was, an acknowledgement that he existed in their uniform, and largely failed. There was a lot of gamesmanship that played out in the media. It was just like, 10 days ago, where I think Woj reported that the Sixers were cooling on the idea of bringing Paul George aboard. So what do you make of how this played out and the Clippers' reaction to it?
The Clippers statement and what Lawrence Frank had already said publicly about this, about the CBA, it can sound like an excuse, but I do think it's a reason. And what it is that it's not just that this new second apron brings, tax penalties, because Steve Ballmer could pay out the wazoo to front any team. The issues are the cap now, the rules with it hamstring a team and limit you from getting better. And what happens is if you pay into the second apron for 3 out of 5 years, which is exactly what would have happened if the Clippers brought back all of Kawhi, James Harden, and Paul George on the 3-year contracts. They would have had a pick frozen in the future and stuck in the back of the first round. They wouldn't have been able to aggregate salaries to get better. They wouldn't have had trade exceptions, and they couldn't have signed and traded and what have you. And the Clippers were afraid of paying for this team to compete in the West for 3 years and then be stuck for the next 4 from 2027 to 2032 in this brand new stadium with no means to get better and an absolute, team. So that was kind of their fear here. They were saving themselves now from a potential doomsday future. And the cost is definitely Paul George. If they gave him a 4-year deal remotely close to this, I think he would have stayed in LA.
Sticking with the Clippers, Jake, you were one of the first people to report that Russell Westbrook will be worked into a trade somewhere. Typically, when you see a guy opt into a deal and then immediately traded, it was probably a conversation that was made between the agent, the player, and the team, kind of an agreement. Why would Russell Westbrook do that? Why wouldn't he just test free agency?
To your point, there's definitely, I think, a collaborative process there with the agency XL Sports and the Clippers trying to find him a new home. The only read I have on it right now is that he wasn't necessarily certain that Russell Westbrook was going to get more than the minimum. And the minimum this year for him is 3.6. So that's a cool $400K that he made sure he got. And it's a thing all around the league right now. Chris Paul signing with San Antonio. He avoids a situation like he would have had to in Phoenix or LA where he would have been on the minimum. And that's a cold, hard reality for a lot of veterans once they do decline. Once you get on a minimum contract, it's really, really hard to get above it. And that $400,000 gap, that's not nothing for these guys, even though they've made $100 million throughout their career, $200 million throughout their career. So I think there was some appropriate fear, I guess, or skepticism on their side that he was going to actually have opportunities above that minimum number.
One of the big names that's going to be on the move, we just don't know where, is Klay Thompson. The Warriors haven't put out a weird statement, but they've we've gotten the flags that his time is
done. There's some traction out there for Dallas. And that is like such a Dallas Mavericks pickup. Is so their identity. Let's turn a superstar into a role player type of guy, and he could really help.
He could help, and they have that Tim Hardaway traded player exception that they can, if they can work something out, they can get him in. Jake, what are the odds that he's wearing a Dallas Mavericks uniform at the start of next season?
I really do think right now it's between Dallas and the Lakers, where they both can kind of basically give him the same type of salary structure, somewhere around the mid-level exception. So it's just a matter of figuring out which scenario. I mean, the Lakers, I think, is more direct. They wouldn't need any type of sign and trade, I don't believe. And Dallas has options to do that. But I've been told by the cap nerds I know that Dallas can clear away to just get their full mid-level as well and bring him in without that complication. But, Philly's been looming on the periphery here too. They've got Paul Reed's contract that is $8 million and non-guaranteed. They could waive him. They could use him in a sign and trade too. So I'm not totally discounting the Sixers either, but overnight and, so far early this morning, the word has definitely been that he's deciding between Dallas and the Lakers. And I think objectively, Dallas is clearly more positioned to help Klay Thompson compete for his 5th championship. So I think if winning ultimately rules the day, it's going to be Dallas. It's going to be, you go.
How did Orlando fall out of this? Is it just because they went and got KCP? Because I'm looking at their roster.
It's a nice move for them.
That is a nice move, but I'm thinking like, a Jonathan Isaac sign and trade doesn't get Klay Thompson done to Orlando.
Yeah. And Orlando was also sniffing around this Paul George thing as well. They were in play there. What do we make of Orlando?
So Orlando, I honestly don't believe was ever really a Klay Thompson team. I think they definitely wanted a guard. They gave that money to KCP. They were absolutely looking at Malik Monk, but Klay, approaching 35, doesn't exactly fit the timeline as well as KCP, even though KCP I think is 32, so he's not, a spring chicken like Franz and Paolo, but he, I think, fits more so from like a long-term and not a wheels falling off trajectory that Klay has kind of shown of late. So I mean, honestly, it was probably sometime last week, I checked in with someone from Golden State and I said, hey, I think this KCP Orlando thing is real. I don't think Clay has a home. And they said, yeah, we've been trying to tell people all along this Magic thing isn't legit. It just kind of leveraged that his side was trying to create. So, and honestly, I haven't said this publicly yet. I don't really think Paul George was really so real for Orlando too. That might have been some type of quid pro quo. Orlando gets a meeting, quote unquote, and it helps Orlando look good. And it helps Paul have some type of leverage as well. It's not just Philly. Like, I haven't gotten it confirmed at this juncture that Orlando even met with Paul George and that there even was a meeting scheduled, but there was just some kind of loose interest that could have happened and benefited both sides there.
Jake, buddy, we started this off wrong. Your energy is all low. How are you doing, man? I know this is the worst time of the year because it's like you don't get to sleep. Yeah, you're by your phone all the time. Tell me about your personal life during free agency.
So last night I actually got like my first night's sleep of more than 5 hours in probably 2 weeks.
Same.
Because the draft, that's another thing too. Like everyone was kind of saying yesterday on Twitter, oh, the new CBA cooled the early rush out the gates. No, the fact that the draft ended Thursday and free agency ended Sunday, as opposed to like usually there's a week for all these deals to, illegally get figured out. So we didn't have that run up here, and yeah, it's been good. We got a new foster rescue that we foster failed. Arugula, she's in the house, so that's been nice. Arugula. We call her Rugi. So everything's been good over here.
I love it.
Hold on, can you give a foster a nickname because now it's all confused when it goes to its actual home?
No, we failed. We adopted her. She's ours now.
Okay.
She's my daughter. I'm a dad.
Oh, okay, all right.
Arugula.
Congratulations.
More like a mixed green type of person, but that's a cute name.
Yeah.
Spinach.
Roogie.
Honestly, in a class with kale, overrated.
Huh.
More aesthetically pleasing than tasty.
It's peppery though.
The rooster.
Jake, I do want to ask you, we know that Philadelphia is remaining aggressive, and I really wish that the Miami Heat would take a lesson from that recent aggression that Philadelphia's had. They are very quiet right now. They are bringing back Kevin Love. Again, same scenario playing out here for the Miami Heat. The rest of the East is getting better. Tobias Harris, by the way, goes to Detroit. That just broke.
Ew.
Yeah, I think, what is he pulling?
2 for
What is
52.
Detroit doing,
2
man?
for 52.
Dude is printing money. Tobias Harris.
that is Detroit signing a piece that they will trade next year because in the
100%.
NBA, bad contracts have this bizarro value. So they're just a way station right now. But Houston, along with the Miami Heat, are these teams that we heard could be players this summer, have the capital to get something done. Right now, we're just seeing the names that we know about. Is there any chance that some superstars that we don't necessarily know are available on the market can find themselves to the Houstons, to the Miamis of the world?
So quick note on Tobias. This is also a sneaky way for the Pistons to spend a lot of the cap that they have to spend to reach 90% of the salary floor.
I don't think it's sneaky. That has to be what's going on here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Washington did it too. Like Jonas Valanciunas, starting center for the worst place Washington
I thought I was
Wizards.
getting pranked when I saw the Jonas
Hold
Valanciunas
on.
thing.
Before we move on to answer Mike's question, I had to say, because you brought up Valanciunas.
Yeah.
He was the best center on the market between him and Hartenstein.
No, Isaiah was. Hartenstein was, man. How dare you?
If I'm Jonas Valanciunas, I'm looking at my resume and I'm looking at his resume and say, I have more to show that I can do this.
But Jonas's arrow is not pointing up the way that Isaiah's is.
Sure, but also I am what I am right now.
Yeah.
If there's a part where we're saying, hey, who are you sure can replicate what he did this last season? It's the guy who's done it 3 or 4 or 5 years, not the guy who did it for half a season. Why did he take less than mid-level?
I don't know. Has there been someone who's gotten the full mid-level yet? I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're past. I mean, if that happens, if it did happen, I apologize. But every team I spoke to before free agency repeatedly said, oh yeah, if we can get this guy at 9-10 and still leave 3-4 million left to use as a traded player exception or to sign somebody else. We're in this new era now where the mid-level is so high that I don't think any team I spoke to had any plans of using that full amount.
But 10 seems criminally low when you look at the other centers on the market, what they've gotten.
If he didn't get that, honestly, I think he was looking at the minimum in certain scenarios. Yeah.
Given where he is in his career. But back to the original
Yeah.
question, Miami,
The original
Houston.
question, Miami, Houston.
Miami, Houston. Are these franchises actually going to do something with the trade capital that they've been reserving?
The problem that Houston saw at number 3 and that Portland saw the year before at number 3 and that, Cleveland has seen in past years and Golden State when they had 7 and 14, there just aren't a lot of players right now that are available that are, on a bad team. Like Lauri Markkanen is probably the one guy that I think has actual possibility to get traded. But if you want him, the Jazz are going to look at what Mikal Bridges just got. They're going to look at what they got for Donovan Mitchell and when they got for Rudy Gobert, and they're going to say, give us 5, 6 unprotected picks. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to be something a team wants to do unless they really figure out and believe that Lauri Markkanen is the missing piece. I've heard Golden State and San Antonio and Sacramento as the teams that have most checked on him. But at this point, I think it's still a little touch too early to have. The Jazz can still renegotiate and extend Lauri Markkanen that begins as early as August 6th. And every indication I've had is that they're trying to do that and add to him right now. But that's the guy.
So
that's the only guy I think. Donovan Mitchell's going back to Cleveland. Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant's not worth that. Why hasn't not worth that type
Why
of
hasn't
stuff.
the Mitchell thing happened yet? Because a lot of Heat fans are holding out hope. I know what your point is a good one. That there aren't really superstar malcontents on bad teams right now. I would say there are a couple of bad teams that don't necessarily realize they're bad, but they're in unique situations. Tell Ishbia that they're not going to be competitive. It's hard to reason with them right now. So conventional wisdom would say sit back and wait for some of these teams to do bad. However, if Miami goes another offseason with letting the rest of the Eastern Conference lap them, and even in their own division getting worse inside of that, I don't know if this fan base, which has been pretty patient with Pat, I'll take that back, hasn't been very patient. But now that the Celtics finally won their title, you're in chase mode. How logical is it that the Miami Heat are going to practice patience here? Because that would go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, and they might lose both Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin, depending on how things go. The biggest thing about the Tobias Harris news that broke while we've been on here, excuse me, my first thought was, okay, well, that was a big Caleb Martin possibility. Excuse me. So, does he go back? The word has been he's been looking for that type of money, a 2-year, $20 million a year AAV type of thing. Haywood Highsmith's looking for the full mid-level, which we talked about earlier, not necessarily so available out there. So the opportunity cost for them to, find a richer thing somewhere else, I'm not sure that's going to be worth those guys not going back to Miami. But if they do, is that enough too? Are you, to your point, Mike, are you parading down to the Casillas Center because you brought back Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin? I don't think those moves compare to what the top of the East has done. I think you're right. It's going to be a matter of swallowing a patience pill and hoping that Phoenix blows up, hoping that, other situations become awry. I think that's it right now.
The good news is Miami is no stranger to swallowing pills.
Yes. Jake, we thank you for your time. Real quick, 5 seconds or less. What happens with LeBron?
He takes a pay cut depending on the caliber of guy. If they get Clay, he'll take less. But I don't think anyone if they get Brooke, maybe. But
Haywood Highsmith,
he's going back to the Lakers. Yeah.
You taking a pay cut for Haywood Highsmith?
Yeah.
We're getting to the point where I'm going to start overreacting to Haywood Highsmith leaving.
Oh my God!
If Miami keeps getting their lunch taken. Thank you so much, Jake. Check this stuff out for Yahoo Sports, senior NBA reporter. I want to shout out NBC because I haven't been able to follow Olympic storylines this well headed into an Olympics. I think they're telling really good stories headed into these things. And one of the things that have never really been as readily available to me as it has been this year is the trials for the Olympic team being on network television, getting a fair amount of marketing and publicity around it, is really allowing you to establish connections to these athletes well in advance. And that's not usually how I've watched the Olympics.
Don't they? Haven't they always done that? They've always had the Olympic trials.
They've always had Olympic trials, but they've never been to this scale. They have Lucas Oil Stadium being sold
got
out
you.
for swimming. They're really trying hard to make these people stars before the Olympics. Usually it goes the other way, where people become stars because of the Olympics, and you find out more about them. And if they play in the next Olympics, then you know. But they're really trying to develop superstars here in the trial phase, which is interesting.
I like when places like Home Depot have ads letting us know that 700 Olympians have worked for the Home Depot. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
And I like pointing out that the U.S. actually doesn't fund its Olympic programs the way that most developed countries do.
yeah, it's not like a huge war
Yeah,
chest.
no, the U.S. is actually doing poorly here, and I imagine the collegiate athletes will end up paying for this. It might be your favorite Big Ten football program, Jess.
I didn't know that. I think the promotion has been really, really good this year because the last 2 nights especially were gymnastics and track and field, and they've done such a good job on the broadcast of like getting you really invested. Because I'm not someone who watches track and field like in non-Olympic years. I
Nobody
usually
does.
just watch. Some people do. Like it is there is a fairly big like running. Some of these Olympian track and field athletes have millions of followers on social media, and they're big celebrities in track and field.
But they're big celebrities in track and field because of their exploits internationally. Like, so when my parents used to live in France, so I go visit them. On a regular Tuesday, you turn on the TV like at night, and it's like today the what do you call it indoor thing from Berlin, and people and the place is sold out, and people really gave a shit. Addo Bolden, the sprinter was he from Trinidad or where was he from?
You got me here. I don't know who that is.
Addo Bolden, he was the biggest rival to like Michael Johnson back in the day, right? So
Wasn't that the Canadian dude?
no. You think about way further back. You're thinking about Ben Johnson.
Ah.
That was 1988. That was Carl Lewis.
I was thinking about Michael Johnson was in 1996, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. Wasn't there a Canadian dude that was always his rival?
We're getting lost
Sure,
in the weeds
exactly.
here.
My point is
The guy who sang "When a Man Loves a Woman."
that's Michael Bolton. The guy who won 6 championships. That's Michael Jordan. No,
I think was it a Johnson and Johnson?
I think it was Ben Johnson, the Canadian.
Ben Johnson was 88, and he got with the doping.
Like Woody Johnson.
Yes.
Woody Johnson's the owner of the Jets.
I'm like a dog with a bone
Balco.
on this one.
Falco is the place that did the stuff, the drugs.
The dog Bolt.
Oh, Bolt.
Bolt.
Balto.
Balto.
The dog that cured
Balto.
all the kids in Alaska.
Donovan Bailey.
There it is.
Donovan Bailey was Michael Johnson's.
flooring guy in
Michael
North Miami?
Johnson's.
No, the Denver Bronco.
That is a Don
That's
Bailey.
Don Bailey.
That's done. Yeah.
defensive back.
Don, are you ready?
The comic strip about the guys in the army in Korea. That's Beetle Bailey.
Beetle Bailey, yes.
They
The
got new
Beatles.
Beetlejuice coming out in this next month. The
Dude.
movie
That's
theaters.
Michael Keaton.
Oh,
Oh, the silent movie star, right?
That's Buster Keaton.
Ah, damn.
7 for 50.
The
on
baseball
Montour.
expert.
I know, man.
That's Buster
Buster
Olney.
Olney.
oh, you talking about the guy who beat Mike Tyson?
That's
back in
Buster
the day?
Douglas.
Oh,
Buster
Buster
Douglas.
Douglas.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean O.J. Simpson's lawyer?
No, that's Carl Douglas.
Oh, Carl Douglas.
bruh.
Oh.
What's he up to?
The guy who played Apollo Creed, rest in peace.
Oh, that's Carl Weathers, man.
Still raining, by the way.
That's bad weather.
Oh,
Did you know that Wyatt Earp and Betty White lived in Los Angeles at the same time
Bull.
for 8 years? They were just both living in L.A.
Wait a second. You tell me the Golden Girls in Quick and the Dead?
Yeah. There was 8 years in Los Angeles where they were like, yeah, I'm going to go to Betty's place.
If I
I'll see you
may.
at Wyatt's.
Okay. The gymnastics. They announced the women's gymnastics team last night on NBC, and they put the trials on TV, and there were tons of people there. It was like sold out. Everyone was cheering. It was such a well done television show. And yes, I mean,
Who is America's sweetheart now?
Simone Biles is
Still?
Yeah,
she's.
still the sweetheart.
I think she's the oldest Olympian to ever.
And
compete for
Ledecky
the
is
United
also
States
still
now.
America's sweetheart. So a lot of the names
There's
are
a
coming
lot of
back.
sweethearts. Also, America's Sweethearts on Netflix also are America's Sweethearts. The DCC Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Can I ask what's happening across this entire country where for decades we had a cycle of this person is in, you're hot, you're out, and then the next person comes in. And whether you're talking about people running for president or people in the Olympics, these people just won't let go.
Modern medicine.
Simone Biles is so good.
know.
She is. Did you see the
Shikari,
video of her?
Shikari wasn't the biggest star 4 years ago.
No, she didn't get
no,
to
yeah,
go.
Yeah,
didn't go
so
there,
like
yeah.
superstardom now.
Simone
It's her
Biles
moment.
last night, one of her passes in her floor routine, she was 12 feet in the air.
Jesus.
12 feet, and she is 4'8".
Dude, I went to a trampoline park the other day with my kids,
Dangerous
terrifying.
game, buddy.
Terrifying.
Dangerous game.
Terrifying.
Also, an Olympic event, the trampoline gymnasts.
Yeah,
Is crazy,
Dude, do you see how do you not think I'm going to shatter every single
That's
bone
an
in my
Achilles.
I
body?
thought you were about to say I'm going to shat my pants because that's what I
the
think
best
is
thing
going
that
on.
can happen. It's the best thing that can happen if I show up on a trampoline. No, I don't know where that age was for
Best
me.
thing that can happen.
Yeah,
is
that's
you shitting
that.
your
Yeah,
Yes.
You
it's the best
literally-
possible thing. Like you got out of here with just dirty pants. Great, survived.
That is an ACL and Achilles graveyard.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can just hear it like a chicken bone.
Well, I don't know if you
Speaking of
ever see these videos that go viral of people doing like the foam pits at the trampoline parks and stuff. Like people get hurt in those all the time. They're super dangerous.
I call my
but-
kids.
Bruh, how in the hell, Pablo Torre, how is Joel Embiid allowed to
On the
play for the
American team.
USA team? The math ain't math.
Me and Juju were just looking at the roster. We were talking about USA hoops and kind of when they're starting. I think like later on in July. And I'm running through the roster. I'm like, okay, Bam, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, AD, KD, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton. I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
Wasn't Hakeem Olajuwon on the '96 team?
he was. So first of all, I gotta ask: are you guys asking how is he eligible or why was he picked?
Both.
Not why was he picked. I understand why he picked.
No,
But, like how is this able to happen? My boy from Cameroon.
Yeah, so-
you need to scrap up over there, bro.
Well, here's the funny thing: he got his U.S. citizenship, but he got it after he got his French citizenship. The French fast-tracked his citizenship because he told Boris Diaw, the GM of Team France, I want to play for France. So they went to the president. The president had to, like the president of the country, not the president of the federation. They did all this paperwork, fast-tracked him, so he's French, and then his U.S. citizenship came in, and he was like, on second thought,
On second thought, he's playing both sides.
he's playing both sides indeed. And so he goes to Team USA. The French Federation goes nuts. They say he's a coward. Like they talk big about him.
Man, you must be doing something wrong if the French are calling you a coward.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Now, the reason why
I saw Smetty like shrink away from the microphone, like
we're not doing
World War WW2.
I was
They
about
still
to
owe
make the
us.
same joke, and then you did it, so I viscerally reacted to us having the exact same joke.
WW2 forever.
visceral. That's the
Back-to-back
dragon from
World
House of
Champs.
Dragons, right?
Yes, Dragon Ball Z.
Viserys. So Juju,
Nope, we're not
because
playing
he
the game
hasn't
anymore.
played
Big
for
Z.
a national team anywhere, and he's technically a U.S. citizen, he is eligible to go.
Shitterson.
Shitterson, yes. And the same way that Hakeem
Shitterson.
Olajuwon got his naturalization and then was eligible because he had never played for Nigeria, he was eligible to play for Team USA. This, by the way, Juju, you'll be very interested in this. This is part of the complication that's stopping the Agumake sisters from playing for Team Nigeria in the Olympics because, truth be told, Team Nigeria should be one of the best women's basketball teams in all the world with a chance to medal, perhaps even gold. But the problem is so many of their players, because they're growing up in America, have played for Team USA on a youth level or some other level. And because of that, they're deemed ineligible to represent Nigeria, which I think is kind of horrible.
And the pendulum finally swings. The WNBA, speaking of those lovely sisters.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday, Diana Taurasi versus Caitlin Clark, the biggest game in the world. Caitlin got her yesterday, and she was one rebound away from a triple-double. The first rookie to ever do that in the history of the world, Craig. Not just now, the whole world. Speaking of history, big Angel Reese yesterday, the first WNBA player ever to have 10 consecutive double-doubles in a single season. Salute to the rookies in the WNBA right now. If both of those sisters, salute.
Salute. Let me ask a question to you, Juju, and you, Jessica, because you are our WNBA lead analyst here. Is this do you guys get the same vibe I do that Caitlin Clark at every opportunity throws gas on the fire every time she's asked a question? So the other day she was asked, what kind of advice have vets given you on the court? Like, I don't get any advice from anybody. I'm like, there's a million ways to answer that where you don't add to this fire of everybody hates me. Why? And she never ever takes the opportunity to diffuse.
Right. She just keep it real. Like that sis just keep it real. She ain't trained in bull. Like she actually telling the truth. Like, well, shoot, they ain't giving me no advice, but she could learn to just bull right there. Where I'm getting some great advice for all over the place. Sis ain't bull. She gonna keep it straight.
She ain't got to lie. She could just say, you know what, man, I'm just focused on getting better every day.
But sometimes the truth right there in your eyes if I don't like my damn teammates, I don't like my damn teammates. If this is the case, or if my coach ain't telling me nothing, guess what? She ain't taught me a damn thing. I'm gonna look into the camera and say it because I'm her. So if you ask me a question, I'm keep it real. We gotta let that sister keep it real. That's her honest answer.
I think a lot of people probably would agree with you, Amin, but I think the counterpoint to that is people think that Caitlyn is just kind of, like you said, like she just tries to keep it real or stick to basketball, and that is her giving her like stick to basketball answer. It's just like, oh no one's giving me advice, I wish. But I think you could read both things into it, and so people are very split on where to fall on that.
In the way that she answers questions, it reminds me of Stormfront from The Boys. Like everything's like, well, da-da-da, and it's like on the surface level, you can be like, yo, like it's just a straightforward answer.
But she's also a young lady. Like she is young as hell. She ain't got the same maturity and know how to do all these media train. Like she got all these cameras in her face at such a young age. It's surprising she don't mess up more, man. Like salute to her just keeping it real, and she ain't throw nobody under the bus necessarily. It's if you choose to look at it that way. But this sister is not. Remember, Ant-Man came in the league and was telling, I can beat you in baseball, I can beat you in basketball. She ain't doing none of that. She just keeping it real at these press conferences.
Ant-Man's still saying those things, by the way.
You
He never
feel me?
stopped.
You feel me? But also, everybody around the league, the whole league, salute to the. I might have to do a WNBA minute tomorrow. If y'all can have me.
Yes.
There's so much going on in the WNBA right now, and it's so important, dog. Finally, all the eyes are right where they need to be, directly on these ladies.
And it would be great if I had 2 sets of eyes, because yesterday the Sky and the Lynx played at the same time as the Fever and the Mercury, and I could only watch one at a time.
Which one did you watch?
I watched the Fever because it was on ESPN.
Doc?
Anthony Stolars is going to Toronto.
I
3
knew it.
years.
I
2.5.
knew it, son of a bitch.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.